You know what I'm talking about.
Alrighty, the date is July 3rd, 2024. Lieutenant Morris on the phone with Councilman Dan Nutt in regards to investigation 24-25099. Councilman Nutt, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
I know there's a lot of people to talk to here, and so I'm trying to kind of do this over the phone. Obviously, I know your voice, so I'm comfortable that it's you. But with that being said, I am recording, and the reason I actually have you on the phone, sir, is I'm reaching out to talk to you about a little what you know about an incident that happened after the regular city council meeting on Monday, July 1st, so just a couple days ago.
Yes.
Right at the conclusion of the meeting, Mr. Garen Petty and Brianna Dahl, the clerk of council, had a interaction. I've gotten word that you may have had information about that, and that's why I'm calling you today.
Okay.
and hoping to conduct an interview. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to just stop me, let me know. But in the meantime, it'd be most helpful. Do you recall the incident I'm talking about, the situation?
Yes, sir, I do recall, yes.
Okay. So if you can, it would be helpful if you would just reach out to me. Let me know, kind of like in almost like a story fashion, what happened, kind of beginning with that incident, though. You don't have to walk through the entire council meeting or anything like that unless there's something in that meeting that is kind of relevant to that interaction between those two individuals. But if you can, just let me know, what you saw, how you became alerted to things, and then walk me through it like a story.
Absolutely. Okay, so, it was at the end of our council meeting. It was adjourned. I was actually at my desk just gathering my things up. And I kind of heard, a ruckus, a loud yelling type sounds. I didn't know, I was kind of doing my own thing. And then I happened to actually look up and I saw Mr. Petty, who came out of the, what you want to call the gallery, I guess, into the council area over more by where the mayor sits, past the knee wall. At that point in time, I was still standing at my desk. I did notice that he was very, very animated. I wouldn't say raising his voice, I would actually say yelling. He was making a whole lot of hand gestures, pointing directly at Miss Dahl, and just being very overly aggressive. In my opinion, people get animated at city council. I'm actually glad that people want to be involved, and spirits are, passions run high sometimes. This is not what that was. It was excessive, and it was extremely aggressive. Right when I had noticed that, I don't know how many minutes it was going on. Like I said, I did hear something occurring, but I was just kind of shuffling my papers together. And when I happened to look up, when I noticed that. So I did try to head in that direction. When I had gotten up from my desk, he was still, frankly, screaming at Brianne. She was looking as straightforward. I think she was still sitting at that point in time as she could. You could see it on her face. Her complexion changed. She was, I don't want to infer how she was feeling, but she looked like she was being overwhelmed, let's say, by the interaction. I tried to make my way over there. Miss Kempton had actually stood up and was kind of standing in the way a little bit, so I had to say, excuse me, let me get by. At that point in time, I also then did notice nobody was actually truly interacting with Mr. Petty, which was rather concerning. The only person I did see over there doing anything in Mr. Petty's direction was, I believe it was President Arredondo. He was kind of like motioning with his hands just to kind of like shoo, like back away, get away, something like that. That's the only thing I kind of noticed at that point in time. By the time I actually literally got over to where the situation was happening, Mr. Petty was actually walking back out of the council area, out past the knee wall, back into where everybody sits. At that time, just went straight to Brianne, asked how she was, is she all right, that whole type of situation. Followed her back into the office and just tried to be in that vicinity close to her just to make sure she was okay. I did look out of council office into chambers. I noticed Mr. Petty coming out of council chambers, and it did seem as if he was going to try to walk into council office. I just kind of not blocked the door, but I did stand in front of her desk, which is still roughly, 2-3 feet from the door, just to make sure that he knew that there was at least a presence there. At that same time, I know Mr. Demakia was actually on the phone. I believe he had called the chief as soon as he kind of walked out of there too, just to kind of let Chief McCann know the situation, what was going on. Right at that time then, Brianne was saying she needed a minute. She did actually go to the restroom, took a few minutes, I believe, composed herself, came back in the council chambers, and at that point in time, I do believe Mr. Petty has left, or at least left the building. And then myself, and I want to say perhaps it was Miss Moon. I will have to double check that. I think it was actually Miss Carter, actually. We just made sure that we walked Brianne out, and then I just waited until she got into her car and actually started to pull away to make sure there was no, issues outside the building. Other than that, I think I'm capturing everything. I think I'm remembering it properly, but that's my recollection.
Okay, and I appreciate that. Again, it's only as everybody kind of has a little different piece of the puzzle. With the things that stick out to them or that they remember clearly may be different from what others, but when you put all that together, it does kind of usually form a pretty accurate or sound big picture that makes sense, and you're able to kind of deduct at least a really, to a good extent, what happened. But with that being said, just a couple of quick questions on some of the things that you mentioned that I'd like to kind of go a little deeper into. One thing was when this interaction happened, you said you were at your desk when Mr. Petty, or you became alerted to what you described as Mr. Petty was yelling. That kind of got you to look over from where you were at your desk, and they were obviously right where Brianna sits. Yeah. Right, he was behind where the mayor sits, kind of on the other side of her desk, or that L-shaped desk, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I would say. I'm kind of. I'd say he was maybe 4 feet from her, but yeah, the mayor's desk is angled. He was definitely even behind necessarily where the mayor sits, I'd say. So yeah. Okay,
and you said Brianna looked overwhelmed. What do you mean by like that? Overwhelmed, like overworked, or overwhelmed? I guess. What do you mean?
Sure. Yeah. I guess I don't know maybe the proper term for it. She was very. She very well could. It could have been like a fear look on her face. She was very much, in my opinion, just trying to keep it together, and frankly, not break down in the middle of, it wasn't a council meeting, but at the end of a council meeting, there's still a lot of, individuals around. She was looking just straight forward as much as she can. And I guess I don't know how to term it, but very much trying not to break down. It was very obvious she was in distress. It was very obvious she needed somebody over there. It was very obvious. Honestly, somebody should have said something or got there sooner. There was a lot of people who were closer. It's kind of unfortunate, let's say, that other individuals who were closer to the situation didn't do something immediately, because it was absolutely called for, and you could see it on her face. That I would say that she was definitely in fear and overwhelmed.
Okay, so definitely in fear and overwhelmed. As such, let's see here. Sorry, I'm writing as I talk here.
Absolutely, you're good.
So let's see here. You said that after the kind of incident happened, the interaction between her and Mr. Petty occurred. You went to her office and asked her, or you asked if she was okay. Was that in her office or in the hallway or at that seat where her desk was in council chambers?
Sure. I honestly, I do believe I asked her while we were still standing in council chambers. I don't know if she was still sitting when I asked. I think she might have been getting up to move. That part's a little fuzzy to me. I apologize.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly when that happened.
No. Yeah, it's normal.
I think it was right as she was walking. Like maybe she had just stood up and started to walk. And then we went in. I followed her into the council office, and I did ask again. She never answered, as far as I remember, because she was so shooken up. She literally just went straight, grabbed because you guys have the key to get into the restroom over there. Grabbed the key, and I think what she said was, I need a minute, and just went straight, beeline straight to the restroom to have a moment to herself.
When she did that, okay, I need a minute. Can you describe her demeanor? I guess was she crying? Was she laughing?
Sure.
Was she,
Sure. No. Yeah. Sorry, not to interrupt you. Yeah. No, absolutely not laughing. She did mention even when she came back, she said that after she had come back from the bathroom, that she needed to use the restroom to actually cry. She had mentioned that. So it was absolutely, I would say fear, very distraught, shooken up, needed that minute in a locked, secured restroom where she probably felt safe because, she has the key. It locks when she goes in there. She knows there's no one in there.
Okay.
I'm assuming a few things, but I mean, that's kind of the vibe I got.
Sure.
She needed to get the heck out of there, let's put it that way, and just kind of be to where she could have her emotions, probably a little bit more in private. I mean, I'm assuming she doesn't probably want to break down in front of council members and the mayor and, stuff like that.
Yeah, understandable too. How long have you been on council, Mr. Nutt?
Second term, 3.5 years. So 3 years. Well, 3 and some change.
So a little over 3 years. And has Mrs. Dahl been there that entire time as the clerk?
Yeah, she started as the assistant, but then became the actual council clerk during my first term.
Have you had opportunity to work with her, occasion to work with her in this 3 years and some change? Have you worked with her pretty regularly?
Absolutely, yes.
So do you have a pretty good idea of what her sort of norm kind of behavior baseline is?
I would say I absolutely do, yes.
Did she seem like her normal self after this occurred?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Anything that you noticed in particular as far as articulation goes, and not to lead or anything, but the idea is certain things you had mentioned, or you've already mentioned that she was, quote, definitely in fear. So, what about your observations, I guess, suggested that? I mean, obviously you said that she had left and came back and literally told you that she was crying. So that's one thing. Crying is one thing that would obviously, lead you to believe that may not be her baseline, although it could be.
Sure.
But, any other behaviors that she was exhibiting, breath patterns, anything like that?
Sure. Like I said, when I initially noticed what was occurring, and I was starting to make my way over there, trying to get over there. Like I said, she was staring so wide-eyed, straightforward, like her skin tone had changed, like a pale, look to her. Very, very much that she was absolutely uncomfortable. I would say that she was fearful at that point in time. That is not her general operating standard. She's very happy. She's a pretty bubbly person, very helpful, pretty talkative. But that's too when I had originally asked her if she was okay, and then walking into the council office behind her, I asked her again because I just went, "Are you okay?" I just want to make sure. That was kind of what I was saying.
Yeah.
Like I said, she didn't answer, and I don't know if she could at that point in time, and that's certainly not how she acts. I mean, she'll let you know exactly immediately, and like I said, I feel like after that occurred, she had to get away. And I think that's why she went immediately, didn't really answer any of the questions I asked. Maybe somebody else asked her in the hallway. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she went straight to the bathroom. That's not how she acts. It definitely got to her. It definitely bothered her. I'd say she was definitely afraid when the situation happened. So shook up, all of that. And you could see it plain on her face, especially when she was sitting there. 100%. When he was screaming at her, 100% you could see it on her face.
Okay. Now, you said that you went to, you stood in the doorway of her office kind of after this happened, like pretty much right after the interaction inside of council chambers happened. You stood in her doorway because you wanted to make sure that Mr. Petty saw a presence in that doorway or in her office. Why did you feel like that was important?
Yeah.
Or did you feel like that was important? Clearly you did it.
I felt like, no, absolutely. Quick clarification. Because I didn't technically stand in the doorway, I know this is a little thing, but I was a few feet back from it, but I was in front of her desk and she was behind her desk. So it was obvious and apparent, and I absolutely felt like that needed to be done, because I didn't know if as he was walking out, I didn't know if he was just going to come straight across the hallway and try to start yelling and screaming at her again. So I wanted to make sure that there was the understanding when he saw me standing there that's not going to fly. That's unacceptable. I get, it's a public building. I'm not trying to keep him out, all that. He has rights to it as a government building, but that was not going to happen. That was not going to fly. So I absolutely felt the need to stand there to make sure that he knew that somebody was there and not going to let that situation happen again.
So you've been on council for a little over 3 years. Obviously you're an experienced, public servant. Now, you are well aware that obviously our public has a right to criticize or to voice even displeasure or dissatisfaction with service that they get either from an elected official or from a publicly appointed official, or an appointed official. And it appears as though Mrs. Dahl would fall under the category of somebody who was publicly appointed. Why was this any different from somebody? You mentioned that you wanted to be in that office in case he wanted to come over, but again, if it were his right to be able to yell and scream at Mrs. Dahl, what made you react differently than you would to anybody that wanted to come over and tell Mrs. Dahl that they weren't happy with her service?
Sure. And yeah, to your point, absolutely. Like I had said earlier, people get animated, people get passionate about it, and they raise their voices, and that's fine. Hey, I'm actually very glad people care that much about their local government, right?
Sure.
But no, this absolutely was beyond the pale. It was threatening. It was menacing. It wasn't just I don't like what you're doing. And I wish I could recall the specific words that he was saying. I'm hoping actually it's on, it was recorded, but it was the tone, the tenor, the volume, the hand gestures right up as close as he could get to her. It was threatening. It was menacing. It was unacceptable.
So it's interesting you mentioned the word menacing. So there's menacing as an adjective or I guess maybe a verb. And then there's menacing the crime. For menacing the crime, one has to believe that someone will cause physical harm to another. Even if that person does or does not, attempting to cause physical harm is different. That's assault. But when you mention menacing, there's either a threat of physical harm, typically, or there's the belief that someone will attempt to cause physical harm. And that can be based off of a lot of things, such as mannerisms and aggressive, I guess, behaviors.
Sure.
Which one are you referring to here, or both, I suppose? When you say that his behavior was menacing or his actions were menacing, are you suggesting that you were afraid he would attempt to go physical, or are you saying that? What exactly are you saying?
Sure. No, I can appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I would say that I'm glad that it happened to where she was separated by a desk. Yeah, because it was
Why?
It was excessive, and it was absolutely in a threatening manner. Like you said, I'm not 100% sure what the menacing standard is for,
Well, put it. I mean, I think you're
or whatnot. But to your point though, it was, in my opinion, it was menacing. If you were in her shoes, absolutely, you'd be afraid something was going to happen. I mean,
something. What do you mean by something?
I felt the need. Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, maybe he lays a hand on her. I don't know. I mean, that's why I felt the need to get across that room as fast as I could. And that's the other, and this is a complete side note, but I couldn't believe my eyes that nobody closer was willing to say or do anything. So it was, in my opinion, I would say it was absolutely menacing. I'm glad she was on the other side of the desk. That way he didn't have direct pathway to her. And that's why I, again, felt the need to follow her into the office, and not directly in the doorway, but, in the presence of the doorway so you could clearly see me. And then I felt like I had to follow her out to her car to make sure she got in her car safe.
And that's another follow-up question, too. So, and when I ask you about this, Councilman Nutt, when I ask you about, your thoughts or your fears, I don't want to confuse it. Like, I don't want you to think that you're telling me he was going to assault her, because obviously none of us, other than perhaps Mr. Petty himself, would know what his true intentions are. But there's a difference between threatening physical harm and making someone feel threatened because of your actions. And again, making someone feel threatened that you may attempt them physical harm. For example, I've taken a domestic violence where a husband stood up, smashed a vacuum cleaner against a wall right next to his wife, but purposely did not hit her. All right? Started punching holes in the walls.
Yeah.
She felt threatened that he may cause her, or that he would cause her physical harm had some sort of intervention not be done, i.e. calling the police. And that gentleman ended up becoming convicted, or got convicted, because the courts found that was reasonable. It's reasonable in some cases to say, I am afraid that this person is going to hurt me because of what they're doing, although they haven't tried to, directly threatened to, or did so yet. And I guess when I'm asking you, you're kind of timed when he decided to, quote, get over there as fast as he could. And to say, I made sure somebody walked her to her car, and I made sure I was in that room. Well, was it just so that he couldn't harass her? Or was it because you wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to do something more than that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying now. I guess I would say I didn't really think about it necessarily in the moment, but my actions would then, for what I felt was necessary. I mean, I would certainly hope somebody wouldn't be ignorant enough to put their hands on, anybody, but especially, the clerk in that situation. But I mean, I felt like I had to be there to make sure that he didn't get close enough to her to put his hands on her. I don't know if that.
No,
what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense. Like I said, you're not necessarily indicting him with your words, nor are you necessarily saying that was his intention, but you're saying...
Sure, I don't know, but
essentially you're saying I believed enough that I had to do this because I was afraid that this would happen. And your concern or your fears that this could happen, your beliefs that this would happen, had you or somebody not been there to either break it up or to walk her to her car or to do something, is based on what you observed, obviously, And I guess my point is, when I ask you these questions, I know you when it gets to that point, you never want to necessarily attribute motive to someone that may not be true. Sure. But it's always true if I'm asking you what Dan Nutt felt or believed at that time. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm not asking you to read the man's mind. I'm asking you to tell me what you were afraid of. and why you decided to stick around when maybe you didn't have to, why you decided to walk her out to her car, to go there, and whether or not you believe that she's safe physically now. Even today.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, yeah. Yes. I felt the need to make sure that I was there because I definitely was concerned that if he was able to get close enough. And I've actually been concerned that, she sits at that desk, which is obviously public, and the only thing separating is that 2 foot worth of desk,
Sure.
So, it is a concern ongoing, yes.
And the other thing, when he was standing on the other side of that desk, you mentioned he might have been 4 feet away. Was he close enough to be able? Yeah, it's an estimate, of course, but was he close enough to be able to grab her, or was it impossible for him to get to her?
I got to be honest with you. I'm trying to recall exactly where he was standing and where I know where she sits at. I would assume that he might not have been able just to reach over, but I honestly can't remember specifically how far away he was because at that point in time I'm just trying to get over there kind of a thing, you know what I mean? And I know he was behind like where the mayor's chair sits if it's pushed in at that point right there in council in council chambers. But I don't know how far that is. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. No, it's an estimate, right? And you're looking from a ways away, but put it this way, could he have walked around and gotten to her had somebody not been there or somebody not gotten between them?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I think this is, I'm guessing here, but I think part of the reason why he went that way that he did anyways, because I believe somebody was coming down, because there's like those 2 steps that lead up to where you sit back there. I think somebody was walking down that's why he went that way he did, which was like behind where the mayor was sitting. And I believe that's why he went that way. So, I don't know. If the individual wasn't coming down the stairs, would he have just gone right up behind there? With the way he was acting, he might have, it's hard to say. But, that's I felt like somebody had to stop it or get in the way and, make sure it didn't progress, let's say.
So you've seen a lot of people who are both supportive and I guess not supportive of council or local politics, right?
Yeah.
Over your 3 years.
Absolutely.
I would assume anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes these people are more passionate than other times, whether they're, again, in support or in conflict, I suppose, with the actions of somebody in their local government. In your opinion, was this a rational person voicing concerns? I'm referring to Mr. Petty. Did he appear to be a rational person in control of his emotions, but passionate in a sense, or?
No, I've seen, like I said, before earlier, people get passionate. I've seen that. That wasn't it. This was, it was absolutely irrational. If people get passionate and they're raising their voices, I get it. And like I said, I'm glad they're engaged. But this was beyond that. It definitely crossed the line.
Okay. And again, when I'm referring to that, not so much just in the words used, rather the emotion, right?
Emotions.
Like the ability to control oneself.
Yes. Yeah. It was the gestures he was making, how loud he was yelling, the tenor of his voice, the movements he was making. It was beyond. It was beyond. Yeah.
Okay. And just one kind of last thing here. And I'm not even sure if you'll necessarily know the answer to this, but if somebody is unhappy with the clerk of court, the clerk of council, right? Do you know what his being upset was about, or why he was upset with Mrs. Dahl?
I don't think I knew at the time, but I kind of put it together. I know Garen Petty to be requesting a lot of council records or public FOIA requests or whatnot. But that's fine. I got, it is what it is. I have no problem with that. And it made more sense after the meeting of thinking about it, because I think the question was raised about how long it takes to put council meetings minutes typed out online. And I believe that was maybe the request he was angry about. Anything other than that, I'm unaware of, but I think it was about that. That's what I'm guessing, at least.
So, and I guess this is what I wonder about. If this was something where Mr. Petty or any civilian, any citizen, any resident or citizen, were unhappy with the performance or the response that they get from clerk of council, what are the, is there a means to like take it to the next step? I mean, is there a, is there somebody they can go to and say, hey, I think Jake, put it this way, if Jake Morris is a terrible lieutenant for the Lorain Police Department, there are captains and there's a chief, right? And even a safety director that they can go to and say, this guy is not getting the job done. Is there a well-known or is it well-known what the means are to address, dissatisfaction with the clerk of council?
I think so, and I think you do a great job of it. But
thank you.
I absolutely think so. Yeah. I mean, council is technically Miss Dahl's boss, right?
Yes.
We vote to hire her. We vote to pay her. We vote pay raises. So any council member can be approached about the clerk or the assistant, the deputy clerk, right?
Okay.
So I don't know how they wouldn't kind of put that together, but I mean, it wouldn't matter. You could voice your concern with the mayor, you could voice your concern with the safety service director, and either one of them would absolutely know that as well. And you would say, I'd assume that they would say, you have a problem with the clerk? Well, that's council. Talk to one of your councilmen, call your councilman, call your at-large councilman, just voice your discontent, whatever it is.
So there's a reasonable way, I mean, other than what you referred to as yelling and screaming after a council meeting, and being completely irrational. There is a reasonable way to take it to the next step rather than approach the clerk of council and, in that manner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's council. Any member, any one of us. I mean, you could ask anybody who's on council, or like I said, ask the mayor. He'll tell you. Ask the service director. They'll tell you who you can talk to. It's council. So
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that, I mean, I know that, and I work here. I've worked here for quite a while.
Sure.
I would think that's common knowledge, but I just, I wanted to make sure that, like, you were all accessible at that time, or whoever was present for the meeting was there, especially at the
Everybody
meeting.
was there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's the president of council was sitting right next to her, for that matter. And
yeah, absolutely. Every single council member was there. In my opinion, I think he would know who to contact. I mean, he did. I'm making an assumption on this point right here. I'm assuming that he knew to contact one of the council members to have them ask about how long it takes to put the minutes on. So he knows, how to contact people. And sure. I've never been afraid to answer a question if he asks me it. And if he asks Miss Dahl, I don't like what you're doing. Who's your boss? I mean, even that right there. And she would say, council. So it's
right.
It's right out there. It's, it's available now.
Yeah. No, I mean, alrighty. Well, that pretty much satisfies everything I have to ask you. I know I asked you, probably kept you on longer than expected here, but I appreciate your time. Is there any other questions or anything that you have for me?
I don't believe I do. No. If you have anything else, if I didn't answer something, fully, or just let me know, and I'll, do what I can to help out. So.
No, for sure. So I'm going to go off the record at this time. It's 3:46 p.m. Again, 7/3/24. Lieutenant Morris and Councilman Dan Nutt, we are going off the record.